Hey, what is going on, crypto people? Happy freaking Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday, man. I lose track of the days anymore. To each and every one of you, holy moly, what's going on right now? Bitcoin as a U.S. Treasury reserve asset? What the world? What the heck is Senator Loomis talking about here? Senator Lummis. What's she talking about? Big news coming this week. What are we talking about? Crypto Eddie has pointed out to us that Senator Lummis, make no mistake about it, she is a Bitcoin maxi. Make no mistake about that. What is Senator Lummis talking about? Big news coming. Is it perhaps speaking to what Tony from Thinking Crypto, Tony Edwards from Thinking Crypto mentioned today? We're going to go over that post from Tony. He's interviewed Lummis, I think more than once. I think he gets down into the DC thing as well. Is that what he's talking about? But yeah, I'm going to share the post where he alludes, and I think they go hand in hand. Senator Lummis post with Tony from Thinking Crypto's post as well. Interesting. We're also going to go over a video from the Bankless YouTube channel um, to learn. We're going to go over it again. We're going to get further into the video about the dirty, nasty truth about the banking system and what we could possibly do. This is another guy who's mentioned in the U.S. Treasury's ability to revalue its gold. Interesting, interesting stuff. We're going to cover that as well. We'll do that, probably do the video first because I want to go over these posts. Are they really looking to do this? What's going to come from the Bitcoin conference? Word on the street from former President Trump, who I like to affectionately call the Donald. What are we going to hear at the Bitcoin conference 2024 in Nashville, Tennessee? Interestingly enough, Tennessee is really forward looking on a lot of stuff that people are missing. It's like a little baby Texas over there in Tennessee. like a little baby Texas. Yeah, interesting. What's going on, Leo Messi? Leo Messi was first in the building. How are you, bro? Alex G, what's going on? How are you, bro? Thanks, Gary's checking in. Good to see you, my friend. I hope the news is that they're gonna fire Gary. Yeah, it's coming. Chris Miles, what's up, my friend? Good to see you. Alex G says, really? Bitcoin as investment for the USA? Sorry, but I don't think that it's right until we all know who created BTC for the safety of humanity. Yeah, well, yeah. Here's the thing that I will say, which is interesting. Um, I would always look at BlackRock, and because BlackRock is the fourth branch of the United States government, and I would have to ascertain: are they killing Bitcoin or are they adopting Bitcoin? Like you have to really kind of get to your own conclusion on that. Are they killing it, or are they adopting it and or manipulating it? I think it's the latter. I think they're adopting and looking to manipulate it like they do everything else. But I'm pretty sure if it's the adoption, then manipulate it for its customers. They're not going to harm their customers. Like no shot of that. In other words, no, like the idea of who created it don't matter because BlackRock has adopted it because it's looking to manipulate it for the benefit of its customers. The old game, that type of deal. So to me, I'm not sure if it matters who created it. Uh, and I don't, it's interesting to me. If we find out who created Bitcoin, like let's say we find out who the four people are, three or four people, is it going to matter that we know who they are? The anonymity thing was an attention getter in the early days, in the 2009 and the 2010. The old Nakamoto thing, that was an attention thing. But the asset has now moved beyond that attention. So what if we discover, just like we know who built the XRPL, who built the Bitcoin thing? I'm not sure if it changes anything. Like, we find out the names. Let's assume that that Department of Justice, Homeland Security video is the real deal. And let's say that we know that Bitcoin was created by three people who were sick and tired of the financial system, and they live in New Mexico and Arizona and Texas. But we find out those are the creators. Does it change anything for Bitcoin? And here's the thing that I will also say: if the United States government decides to use it as a reserve asset, which I've heard someone else say it in a video, because they have roughly over 200,000 Bitcoin. If they're using it as a reserve asset, what does it matter who created it if they're going to do it? Now, here's the other part that I'll say. I mean, the Donald, I mean, he'll say anything, won't he? I mean, he'll say anything to get some cash coming in. But what if Congress, what if the Senate's big news, what if that bill comes to fruition? What if that happens? You got this BlackRock thing with all of this Bitcoin, and it's the fourth branch of the government. You got the United States Congress introducing a bill. It's going to be kind of what it is, right? And Leo Messi points out something that's interesting. He says BlackRock owns all the big miners. So do they own shares in like Marathon and Leo? Alex says, we all know the government of the US created Bitcoin. Come on. Here's what I will say to that. It would not in any way, shape, or form, Alex, surprise me that some group of people at the three-letter alphabet group decided to do an experiment. And it was Bitcoin. SHA-256, Bitcoin thing. Here's what I'll also tell you: that the world's financial system is primarily made up of the alphabet people experimenting. The financial system is made up that way. They're always experimenting stuff. Always. Like always. It would alarm you if you knew some of the things that the three-letter alphabet people were doing to people in the guise of experimenting. It would alarm you. It would really, really, really alarm you. Hold on one second. Yeah. No, hold on. Hold on, fam. I'll be right back. All right, sorry guys. That's live. That's live stuff for you right there. Live stuff. Live video. Live TV going on. Chris Miles says, yes, indeed. That's right. The nosy snooping agency. The nosy snooping agency. Indeed, it would alarm you. I don't think it matters because if the people have decided worldwide, yeah, this is the thing that we're interested in. You know what I mean? Doesn't really matter. I think that yeah, I just think it doesn't matter. I mean, the major one would argue the major contributor to the XRPL was born and bred from a three-letter agency, right? I mean, he's on record saying that. You know, I've come to learn that most of the people who leave the three-letter agency don't really leave the three-letter agency. Like there is no leaving the three-letter agency. That doesn't make the XRPL any different. That doesn't make the native asset to the XRPL any different, right? Doesn't change anything. I don't think it changes anything. All right, so let's get into some stuff. Let's get into some stuff here. Going to go over the market, the numbers. We'll go over the numbers because the market is doing what the market does. That's right, Chris. It's a tool. It's how the tool is used. It's just kind of what it is. And well, you probably already know the answer to that question right there, Alex. What up with Jay McKellar that has been around without having any problems? Right? How is that possible? How is it possible that this dude can move around? The dude was part of Mount Gox. He was part of Mount Gox. Never mentioned anything. You never get mentioned in anything. Anything nefarious, you never get mentioned in, but you're part of. How does that happen with Mr. McKayla? Anybody wondering? Like, again, I will just say this, and I'm probably going to stop saying this. You would be alarmed at the experiments that the three-letter agencies have in place. It would be alarming. Alarming. It really would. All right, so let's go over these numbers real quick. Let's go over this coin gecko. Let's refresh CoinGecko, see what's good. Go over these numbers real quick. I'm going to go into this video for sure. There's a token called He. There's a token called He, and it's up 49%. And it's called He. Wow. All right. According to CoinGecko, the total cryptocurrency market cap is down 1.9%, basically 2% in the last 24 hours. Bitcoin is at 2.52 trillion. 2.52. Bitcoin dominance is at 51 or so percent. Bitcoin is again trading at $65,847. And it's down 2.7% on the 30-day. I can't eat that. Ethereum is trading at $3,489. So again, Solana's trading at $172 again. It's up 30% on the 30-day. 30%. I don't know if this thing's ever, thank you, ever gonna yeah. If it's, I don't know. Anyway, there it is, Solana right there. It's a lot of interesting stuff. XRP is trading at 59 cents. It's up 23% on the 7-day. Interesting little pullback here. Very, very interesting to see that. Oh, by the way, our guy, Alessio Rastani, he has some, relatively, we gotta stay above 43 cents, and we have to smash through that resistance for XRP at 65 cents. Let's say 65 cents. We got to get through that in the coming weeks. Got to get through that. So that's the market, fam. The market's doing what it does. I'm going to get to the chat here one more time. I'm going to go over this very, very interesting video. I think it's massively important. Matt, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all. Pookie says never gets mentioned. He is part of 2 different 3-letter agencies. I can't mention them because, they don't like that. They don't like that kind of stuff. So I do find it interesting, those numbers. 43%, we can't break 43, and we have to break through that resistance for XRP of 60, let's say 65 cents. Hugely, hugely important. Now, this video, I know I shared this with you guys. I shared some of this video here. And I want to listen to like 10 minutes of this or so and kind of comment back and forth on this video. It's hugely, hugely important. You're going to learn something here about the BIS that I find you want to talk about alarming? That's pretty alarming. I could have done a video just on this alone, but I wanted to I was going to do a recorded video on this little 15-minute segment here, but I wanted to do a live stream so we can have a little back and forth about what's really going on, so that we can kind of understand why we are in the mess that we're in. What system are we really in? And how, as digital asset holders and even precious metal holders, we're out gaming their game. But if we're primarily in their stuff, then they're outdoing us if we're primarily in their stuff. Yeah. All right. So we're going to share this video as well. I think I said hey to everybody who came in. Let's take a listen to this.
If gold could have been kept as a monetary system during the Depression and the money stacking, and so people could take paper money to central banks and request gold or silver. At this point, we don't. And so I think it's important to look at the reason that I mentioned in the 1600s why William wanted it was he needed gold and silver. But now that there is no gold or silver that the government needs to get through or manipulate the money supply, you do not have that argument of the Depression argument. So the Depression argument, when we were on the gold standard, is, well, if we would have had a central bank, which could have become a lender of last resort, and I still think this is a straw man argument, because you were able to revalue gold. When FDR confiscated people's gold in 1933, immediately after, he did a dollar revaluation. He said, you know what, gold is $20 an ounce. Now I'm saying it's $35 an ounce. And he immediately devalued the currency and the money supply, even though he didn't need to increase the amount of gold. So if gold could have been kept as a monetary system during the Depression and the money supply could have been increased by a devaluation of the dollar relative to gold, but that does not require a central bank.
Wait, so you don't need a central bank to do what you just said, the operation you just said?
No, and it wasn't done by the central bank, even though the Federal Reserve existed at that point. It was done by the Treasury, and the Treasury still has the right to revalue the gold on the Federal Reserve balance sheets.
And this is like the third person that I've watched that brings this up about the Treasury having this ability to revalue the gold. It's an interesting little thing, because some people might think, some people might be like, shoot, I should have probably never sold my gold. Oh, shoot, I should have bought the gold. Or shoot, that's not really fair. I don't own any gold. But who's going to, why will that matter? Like, shoot, I should have never sold my gold. Or shoot, I should have owned some gold. Or shoot, that's really unfair. They can do it, and then it's happened. And it's a done deal. Like, they're not breaking any laws. They're not causing any systemic if they revalue the gold and make it higher, it doesn't cause a systemic risk to the G20 nations because they all have gold. They all have gold. It's interesting. Little deal. It's an interesting thing. I'm still not convinced, for me personally, if I need to go back to owning gold. Like, I don't know. Like, I really feel like there's a certain amount of dollars that we have. And if the digital asset space is the biggest global trade in the history of finance, I was listening to Peter Schiff rationalize for 2 hours and talking with Tom Bayou and Raoul Paul. I mean, the dude is just a big rationalization as to why he owns gold, and he decided not to buy Bitcoin when he had a chance to buy Bitcoin. And also why he said he would buy Bitcoin given what he knows today. If he had a chance to go back, he would buy it. I'm talking just a walking rationalization is this dude, Peter Schiff. Just a walking rationalization makes zero sense. And it got me to thinking about the great taking a little bit. And he keeps talking about how Bitcoin is a bigger risk. It's a bigger risk asset than gold. And all his rationalizations to me just makes zero sense. But I mean, anything he wants to say, Bitcoin is a bubble, Bitcoin goes up, it goes down, people buy it because so they can sell it to someone who, all of these stupid things that he says. And then he said, yeah, of course I would buy it. If I had a chance to buy it again, I would buy it. I'm not stupid. Like, some of his arguments are ridiculous. But on the point of risk asset, I got to thinking, and it made me say this. So you want to hold an asset, Peter Schiff. You want to hold this asset that historically has been an asset that has been taken away from people. So if you look at the charts, right, let's say there's a chart of assets that are taken away from people, right? You pick an asset and say a government took the asset away from the people. Gold would be on that chart. Historically, that has happened. I don't know if they took any other asset, but I know they took gold historically. And they came up with a reason, which was a lie, for why they needed to take the gold. And then they said, if you don't, we're going to penalize you. We're going to imprison you if you don't turn in your gold. We're going to determine how much we're going to give you for it. We're going to take it. And if you don't turn it in, we're going to imprison you. So historically, that has happened. Right? Historically, that's happened. So I think to myself, if they did that once, couldn't they come up with another reason to do it again? Like, another reason to do it again. And the interesting thing is, And the reason why I think it's more applicable for gold than it is for crypto is because the G20 nations have agreed on the value of gold. When I would worry about them taking my crypto, when I would worry about their ability to take my crypto is when the G20 nations start acquiring crypto on a regular basis. That's when I would worry. Chris Miles says silver was confiscated as well. So think about that. So when the G20 nations agree on something that's valuable, that's most likely the thing that they'll take because they all agree is valuable, right? Right now, we got G7 nations that don't agree that crypto is valuable. So why would they take it? But they all agree on the value of gold. They all agree on it. So if they take it from us, they can trade it amongst themselves because they agree that's a valuable asset. Right now, crypto is not in that conversation. It's not in a conversation. As far as taking the gold, taking the crypto, I will say this. It's certainly not impossible, but it is certainly much harder to do, significantly harder to do. And they're trying to make it easier for themselves to do it. They're trying to get some KYCs and some AMLs on these decentralized exchanges for them to be able to say, I know you hold the asset. They're trying. They really, really are trying to do that. But I think it is more likely, significantly more so, that they'll take the gold. If they take something, it'll be gold. Ball Silverback says, sure, they can also turn off the on-ramps for crypto. They can do anything they want. If they are taking gold or crypto, you have bigger things to worry about. Yeah, well, here's the deal. They can always turn the on and off ramps. They can 1000% do it. But decentralized exchange is decentralized exchanges. So even if they do the on and off ramp, you still hold the assets. If they come get your gold, you don't hold the asset anymore. It's gone. Like it's gone. Right? So I think the more likely asset that they would take, because they've proven that they've taken it before, is to take that. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that's when they throw out this, we're going to imprison you thing, like they did back then for gold, like they literally, a fine and imprisonment. Sure. Now, do you think back then there were some people who took some chances? Probably. There's probably some people who took some chances and went around and, did some stuff. Probably. But the fact that they even did it and they had people turning in, lining up to turn it in because they were just scared. So I think that's the more riskier asset to hold. I just think it's the more riskier asset to hold because to them, it proves to be more valuable. So yes, we do live in a world where we have less and less control because we voluntarily have given up that control, right? And the only way to stop them from doing stuff is kind of taking back control, which means for me, which financial system are you participating in? I try to teach my friends this all the time. If you continue to hang out and dwell and live in that financial system where they've taken all your control, it just makes them more powerful. This is what Jeff Booth says all the time. All the time. But I think there's a shot there's a shot that the great taking of the paper assets, that reason that they come up where they say, we got this too big to fail bank that's failing, and it's going to start this cascading event. I think they're going to go by, instead of the gold, they're going to go by the great taking first. And, like where they deem all these things as collateral, and they do that first. That's just my personal view. I think they would do the great taking first. By the way, in the great taking, right, your gold and crypto is better off than your 401k, your TSP, or your self-directed IRAs. They're better off, right? The things that you can hold are better off in that great taking scenario, right? You're better off. And so I don't put anything behind, or I'll never say what three-letter agencies and governments can't do. They surely can do stuff, and they do it slowly by surely. Like they keep prodding at this KYC for these centralized exchanges, trying to make them brokers. Are you noticing that? You notice how they keep sneaking it into this bill, and then the digital chambers catches it, or the blockchain association catches it, and like, fine, okay, let's try to sneak it into this other bill, right? To make these DEXs brokers, requiring all this KYC and AML under the guise of taxes. Under the guise of taxes, which, by the way, if you really look into the tax law, if you really look at the tax code, you don't have to pay anyway. If you really look underneath the curtain of the IRS and the bogus ness of the IRS, that would shock you also. So you got this bogus entity called the IRS. It's just really there to threaten and scare you. They have a tax code that says you have to pay taxes, and then underneath you have to pay taxes. Here's how you don't pay taxes on that same thing. Yeah, you have to pay taxes on ABC. This is how you don't pay taxes on ABC. So they write this whole big thing, that's thousands and thousands of pages on taxes you have to pay, and then underneath everything you have to pay, they show you how you don't have to pay. They show you how to not have to pay that. So why have the taxes? It's just like the whole Federal Reserve thing. Why are you collecting taxes when you can just print the money that you need? Right? So it's all that kind of sham thing that we're in, and it's all birthed from the debt system that started with a government, not the US government, a government, and the private bankers. Right? So that's kind of the deal there. So for me, I think gold's the more riskier asset. Chris Miles says, code, not law. We pay to keep them from seizing our assets. Yes, code, not law. That's exactly right. It is a code, not law thing. It really is. But it's the threat that gets to people. Bald Silverback, why do you say there was only a small percentage of people that actually turned in their gold? Where do you know that? Where can you share with us? I was not aware of that. How do you know that it was only a small percent of people? That's right. That's why there's always that's why it's the tax code. That's why it's the Uniform Commercial Code. It was a video I watched. I am looking it up now to confirm. Okay, cool. Thank you, bro. Right. But just to kind of imagine that kind of deal. That would be good to know, though, that only a small percentage actually turned in their gold. That would be good to know. Because you know how people are. I mean, remember when the beer code launched and everybody was in lockdowns? I don't know. Would you say there was a small percentage that conformed or a large percentage that conformed? Phillips Juan, what's going on, Juan Phillips? How are you, bro? It's been a minute. Appreciate you checking in, my guy. All right, so let's continue listening more to this video. I bring that up because I think down the risk curve at the top are these assets that you don't hold, these paper assets. Then it's gold and silver. Then it's crypto. In terms of confiscation, they can easily take those paper assets. They can then move down. It won't be easy, but they can figure out a way to get people to turn in their gold. And then, of course, there's crypto. You know what I mean? But I would love to, that's interesting too. I wonder if we could ask ChatGPT. No, they can't go back to ChatGPT. To find out what was the percentage of people who actually turned in their gold. Because I'm hearing, this is again, third, fourth, fifth time, I keep hearing some other different person keep bringing up the Treasury can revalue the gold and how it benefits them escalating to paying off the debt. And if these 4 or 5 people know that, the people, you know, all these brain people that they hire, the Treasury brings in to advise them, they know that as well. But I'm not saying it's going to happen. I have no idea. But I believe Jim Rickards has hinted at this. I believe this revaluing of gold. I believe what's her name? What's the lady from ITM Trading? I can't remember her name right now. You guys know her. She showed up in an XRP event. Goodness gracious. I can't remember her name now, but she hints at that as well. All right, so let's look at some more here. Lynette Zhang, thank you. Thank you. Ball silverback, Lynette Zhang, she's hinted at that as well. But I believe for me, right now, when I throw in the least likely asset to be taken away, and I throw in the big trade, you know, the big trade in terms of risk adjusted rewards, it's crypto. So if you got $1,000, I just might as well put it in crypto and kind of go from there. Now, there's a whole element to this whole, you know, if everything goes down, you need gold and silver to barter with and stuff like that. There's an element to that. But I think that if you have money, you have money. And if you need to get some gold for bartering and stuff, you can, I would imagine. But that's kind of that little hedge there, right? So smart people have always said Bitcoin, which means crypto, and gold and silver. So I don't know, maybe after Wind Moon, you know, every liquidity and everything's done into 2025. Maybe, you know, maybe that's when we get back in and we get, you know, a certain amount of those winnings and we buy some gold and silver then. But right now, personally, we're just all in the dirty, nasty fiat into buying assets. And those assets are crypto right now for us. All right, let's take a listen. Let's keep listening here. Then I'm going to get to these posts because this rumor is getting stronger and stronger, like a reality about this Bitcoin U.S. reserve asset. It's heavy.
I do think that's all fair play, though. Isn't that the same sort of like taxation by devaluing the currency sort of play that we were just criticizing central banks for having too much control in that area?
Well, if you own the gold, so if you have the gold and silver when that revaluation occurs, and the point is that you just want more dollars circulating, then you can immediately revalue that, and now you have, you know, more dollars circulating. And what that does is that deflates away the debt. So if you borrowed money let's say you borrowed $1,000 in 1932, and you needed to pay back $1,000 in 1934, and you could pay back that loan with dollars, but the gold was simply revalued, you would now be able to get more dollars from those gold coins you might have to pay that back. And so the money supply could have been increased, whereas people that were holding gold would not have been hurt by it. Because but what you would have done was you would have reduced the real value of debts outstanding, you would have increased the money supply, and you would have alleviated some of the debt pressures and the deflationary pressures. And so a lot of people blame like the deflation that began occurring in the 30s as the problem, but you didn't need to solve it with a central bank coming in and printing fiat money. And so
so the important part of that as well is what he's saying is with the revaluing of gold, more dollars come into the space, that helps them pay off the debt. And if you own gold, it won't hurt you because you own the gold. Who would it hurt? It would hurt people who don't hold any assets that benefit from more dollars being into the system. And that's crypto. Right? So for the people who own the right assets, like gold and silver and crypto, no matter what it is that they do, you're okay, right? Excluding, obviously, confiscation, right? Excluding, because the assets perform well when more dollars, more liquidity comes in, right? It's crypto, gold, and silver that benefit from that. And this revaluing helps them pay down their debt. It brings dollars in, which helps those who own the right assets really, really benefit from it.
These things can then go to, today's world, which I think even makes it a more ironclad case against central banks, is that now that there is no ostensible reason where like we need wealthy people to deposit gold and silver at a bank that the government can then draw upon when it's in need. You now have a situation where I tend to, lean towards like an Austrian school of economics, where the money supply is a primary driver of inflationary forces, as Milton Friedman said. Inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon, and that control of the money supply could be handled directly by the Treasury. So, we would not need a central bank where there needed to be interest paid on our debt. So, for example, we could basically state, we are going to, and maybe it could be a constitutional amendment, it could be a whole different laws, different things, where we said, okay, from now on, we're going to begin issuing United States notes. We're going to begin issuing legal tender that is non-interest bearing. This is what the Continental was during the Revolutionary War. This is what the Greenback was during the Civil War that Lincoln did. We can begin issuing United States notes, non-interest bearing notes, in order to pay our bills. We're going to put constraints on the amount of those notes that we can do. I don't know how much that would work, but I'm just kind of spitballing the idea here to give people an idea of how the world could operate in a post-central bank world. And what we could do, we could agree that we are going to continue to service our debt in dollars. We're going to continue to pay those off, but they're going to be created by the United States Treasury instead of the Federal Reserve.
That's an interesting point. He's looking as, some solutions and making an argument. I got to give this channel some credit here, and making an argument for his big, his whole talk here is about we don't need central banks. They're harming the people, and we don't need them. And the Treasury can come up with some things that are a solution. So let me make sure I do this. And to me, it makes perfectly good sense, for sure, especially when you hear some other stuff that the central banks, some other kind of shenanigans going over there with the central bank. All right.
And that going forward, when the United States has deficits, we're going to pay for those deficits out of these non-interest bearing notes. And we're going to constrain our issuance of those notes because of the knowledge of the inflationary aspects of overprinting these. And you then can cut out that middleman and cut out that interest expense, which is essentially taking money from the people and paying it out to the banks, to the commercial banks that are able to hold Treasury bonds on their balance sheets, and they're working so that these are not even going to be counted against their reserve ratios, so that they could eventually at some point hold, relatively speaking, almost unlimited amounts of treasuries for which they're getting payment of interest on, and then fractionally reserve loan out against those loans. And the American people are paying this interest. There's not a good reason for us. And other governments have worked without central banks, and they usually don't last long. Libya, Iraq, these were governments that did not operate within the central banking system, where they issued money that was dependent upon loans. So the basis of our money system is not the dollar, it's the United States Treasury bond. If we change from the basis of our money system of the dollar to the United States note, a non-interest bearing dollar, then we could eliminate the central bank. It would obviously be calamitous for the banking cabals, and it would need to be done and phased in over time so that.
Well, that's the important part, you know, let's create some calamity to the banking cabal. But there's another part here I want to share with you. This is was really, really interesting because I learned this about the BIS, and it was a little alarming. Where we are. That's minute 50. Let's go here. Let's see if hopefully, I don't think I skipped it if I go here. Let's go here.
Token valuation. I see. So you still have nation states with the ability to devalue their currency and print money if they need to. We're just like cutting out kind of the banking layer of all of this. Is it possible to reform existing central banks? Or not as drastic as, and I'm sure you acknowledge that like abolish central banks, would be just absolutely monumental in terms of political change. Probably a crisis is needed to really precipitate that level of change. But how about reforming central banks, right? We've gone through reforms of a different kind that were basically not democratic in nature. When the U.S. got off the gold standard, for instance, it was a massive reform of the Fed and the central banking system. No one asked the population about that. But could we reform central banks in the other direction? Maybe limit their power in some way? And if so, do you have any ideas or proposals for how we might do that?
Yes, I mean there are intermediary steps beyond just putting in a controlled phase out of central banking. It was around the financial crisis when the Federal Reserve just began paying interest on reserves. So one step that we could take is we could return to a situation where banks are required to keep capital requirements held at the Federal Reserve, but they don't get interest on those. And so, this is essentially a subsidy of commercial banks that was put in place post financial crisis in order to help stabilize the banks to begin paying interest on required reserves, which we never did before, which is billions and billions of dollars every year being paid out to JP Morgan and Citigroup and Wells Fargo on behalf of the American people for basically keeping a small amount of money with the Federal Reserve. Why does the Federal Reserve need these reserves, right? I mean, Federal Reserve creates money. I mean, it's obviously a scam. So there are steps that we can take to make at the end of the day, the real issue is the control of money in private hands and in the banking cartel. And so I think that, that's just one example. I think, looking at how much money these banks are actually able to lever up and loan out, I think we could change leverage ratios. The argument against this, and this is what's going on right now with the Basel Accords, which they're called the Basel III Endgame or Basel. They don't want to call it, the BIS central bankers getting together and making the global rules, which is what it is. They all happen in Basel at the headquarters of the Bank for International Settlement. But the Bank for International Settlement, as I mentioned, its previous Nazi ties and different checkered history means that everything with the BIS is normally kept in the shadows, even though that's where the euro was created before the ECB came into existence. That's where all these financial regulatory standards happen. We had Powell and Lagarde talking in Sintra, Portugal the other week, but they don't talk about the fact that all the central bankers were essentially meeting in secret over the weekend at the Bank for International Settlements at their annual meeting. So all these global central bankers, they get together at the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, and they decide exactly what they want to be doing. And then they go out and they sprinkle the jawboning and the fairy dust, and they act in coordinated ways. So, I mean, just shedding light on what the BIS activities are, when these bankers are meeting, why can't we know the attendance rosters? Why can't we be told what are the minutes of these meetings? Why can't there be a press conference after these bi-monthly meetings? For people who don't know, the central bank chiefs of the top 63 central banks in the world, every 2 months, they go to Basel, Switzerland, for this 2-day meeting. It's Powell, Lagarde, everybody, Canada, Saudi Arabia, PBOC.
Everybody in the West or the PBOC participates as well?
The top 63 central banks in the world. Russia was suspended after their invasion of Ukraine.
Okay.
So Russia no longer attends, but no, pretty much every single major central bank head goes there. And almost all of the time, it is the actual head. So once in a while, like Powell won't go because of another commitment or something. And it will just be like the head of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And this goes back to, these meetings have been going on for decades. So every 2 months, and you can go to like bis.org, or you could Google BIS bi-monthly meetings, and it will talk about, there's 3 meetings they have every 2 months. They have something called the ECC, which is the Executive Consultative Committee. And this is essentially the G20. It's the central bank chiefs of like the top 19 central banks in the world. And the US has 2 people on that committee. Interestingly, it's not just our chairman that's part of that committee, but it's also the president of the New York Fed. As I mentioned, you have to look at the reserve banks in the United States to understand the Federal Reserve System. And in that ECC, they essentially set the agenda for what their marching orders are going to be to the rest of the world central banks. They have a very posh dinner in the evening, on Sunday evening, on the 18th floor of the BIS headquarters, catered in the beautiful dining room designed by the same architects that did the bird's nest in China. And then on Monday, there's 2 meetings. The first one is called the GEM, the Global Economy Meeting, and that's where this agenda that was set by the ECC gets passed down to the second tier of banks. And it's like the next 20 banks get to attend that meeting. And the final tier, kind of the last 20 banks, they get to watch the GEM, but they don't get to vote or talk. And then once everything's kind of been coalesced, then they conclude the meeting with the AG, the All Governors meeting, where all 63 members get to attend and talk and discuss. But essentially by that point, it's just a ratification of what's been decided in the ECC and the GEM. The current chairman of both of those committees is Jerome Powell.
Okay, so talk about this a little bit. So I guess like zooming out for a second, there is maybe some measure of decentralization. It's not.
I want you guys to kind of hear this thing about the BIS, if I can find it. Hold on.
Created by the increase in the money supply, which we get through the creation of debt.
And if there is a wartime type of scenario and
obfuscation of what they are doing, it makes things a little bit more clear.
Anyway, I can't find it, but he basically said that the people at the big BIS, where they're located in Switzerland, it's like there's 2 parts of little small 1-mile area in Switzerland where the BIS is headquartered and whatever. And that the BIS and the BIS people don't pay any taxes.
Now, Bitcoin as a US.
Like, they don't pay any taxes. It's a 1-mile thing there, and it's only 1-mile area in Switzerland for the BIS people, and they don't get to pay any taxes. And it's a really odd, strange situation that this BIS that just, and he's saying the background, you heard him say about the background in reference to that group out of Germany, but that's interesting to me. All right, Ball Silverback, take care, bro. He said, I can't find a sound answer. Let me get out of here. I can't find a sound answer on the participation of citizens in turning gold from 50% to most. Mario, yep, I know who that is where I first heard not many participated. He believed he stated 25 to 30%. Okay. The banking cabassel. That's right. That's right, Baba Papa. That's exactly right. More monkey business. Why is the light button glitching? I think if you talk about my thing, it's the internet. It's definitely the internet. But anyway, that's this interesting little history thing I did not know. This little 1 mile area for which this is where the BIS people actually live. They don't pay any taxes. That's interesting to me. Everybody else in Switzerland does. But the managers, these people work at the BIS, they don't. Very interesting. I bet you if you looked into the history of the BIS, it would not be great. If you really looked into the people behind it and all that stuff, I bet you it would not be great. All right, so let's go over some things here that I wanted to put out, that I put out. So Ripple's infrastructure, did we miss that? The infraplay. Did we miss it? Anders L put something out that I think it's worthy to just kind of go over. Did we miss their infraplay? And then I'm going to go over the Bitcoin thing. I mean, did we miss it? He says, we talk about Ripple's institutional adoption of XRP and how slow it has been. But I think, says Anders, people miss one critical aspect, and that is that the infrastructure that has been put into place the last few years, while Ripple being in a lawsuit, that will be able to support adoption at scale. So the infrastructure play, what does that look like? What is the infrastructure play? What really, really, really is the infra play? Is it during this time that they were blockchain infrastructure companies selling software to banks? What does the infra play look like? Is this some software that has nothing to do with the XRPL that helps these banks in case they're ready, right? Some software, some this or that. What's the infrastructure play really? Like, what does that makeup look like? If Ripple was to diagram it and say infrastructure that we've laid, the plumbing that we've laid, what would that look like? Is it, well, we sold this service, we implemented this software to this bank or this financial institution. What's the infra play, right? Anders goes on to say, Ripple custody as an infrastructure play, a must to offer safe custody to its customers. The ODL being live for several years now, proving its reliable product. It's a reliable product that works for its customers. The automated market maker is live, making it easier to offer liquidity to new tokens launched on the XRPL. And hopefully we'll be able to scale new ODL markets and becoming critical infrastructure. The ODL as becoming critical infrastructure for institutional DeFi. Then he talks about Ripple's CBDC play. Ripple is a leader in CBDC development and are working with many central banks on their CBDC efforts with several years of experience. I'm not excited about anything CBDCs. I'm not excited about anything central banking. But is ODL and Ripple's custody solution infrastructure plays? What does the infrastructure play look like for Ripple? What does that really, really look like? I've heard now from several people at Ripple that they want to be a one-stop shop for institutional, right? Institutional DeFi. They want to be a one-stop shop for that. So did we miss the infrastructure play? Is that what it is? Chris Miles says laying pipe in all the wrong places, parentheses, central banks. This is the thing that is, and I did a video and a live stream about that. As an XRP holder, do I feel good about what Ripple is doing in that central bank play? and what they're doing, how they're adding that to their model for a company. Joseph says, right, Cease. Check. See, I was just thinking that also. What have they done new that we don't know about? What's the play? Yeah. What is it? What is that infrastructure? People keep throwing around 1,700 NDAs. What does that really look like? Because we don't know. What does that really look like, those NDAs? Here's what I know they have been more transparent about. Their public shift to move on to the XRPL and to take their products that they were selling to people offline and bringing those products like ODL and Liquidity Hub onto the ledger is significant, and it's a significant move. And I think it'll be a game changer for XRP holders. Get that product on the XRPL. So if this institution wants to use it, guess where they have to be? On the XRPL. That's the game changer in my view. So did we miss the Ripple's infra play, their infrastructure play? Maybe. But now that we know that they're bringing those products and they're bringing it on the ledger, we won't be in the dark any longer. Right? Marcus and Finger in his recent interview with Tony from Thinking Crypto was excited about ArchX because they're going to be bringing several $100 million onto the XRPL. That's a good start. That's a good start, several $100 million onto the XRPL, right? Because there are blockchains and or projects with billions in TVL, right? So getting this hundreds of million onto the XRPL will be a good start for sure. Right. So maybe we did. Maybe Anders is correct that the custody play is an infra play. It's an infrastructure play. Maybe tokenization is an infrastructure play. Maybe. But I would like to see the plumbing, like Chris Miles talking about. What did they do? What is that makeup of those 1,700 NDAs, quote unquote? What's the makeup? What's the relationship there? What's the arrangement? What's the arrangement and agreement? What's going on there? If Ripple, like they've said in public videos, that they discovered that the plumbing was pre-internet days, how did Ripple help change that? I get it. They didn't want to move into payments, but was there some infrastructure laid, some pipe laid to change that could benefit this new financial system going forward? That's the question. Yosef says, thanks, Gary says, looks like retirement. I hear you, my friend. So, see, did you share a link to that full interview? No, but I can. It's on the Bankless YouTube channel. Let me get it. Let me get that for you. Let's do that. We'll put that in the chat. There it is, my friend. There it is. That's a big possibility, Chris Mouse. It's absolutely important. Chris Mouse has a great point. He says there is the possibility that we are investing in our own financial prison, yet possibly be rich, yet heavily controlled. There is that possibility. And I got to tell you, I can lean more and more into that if they can keep pushing to try to get these decentralized exchanges under their control. We want them to be done and over with, right? We want self-custody. We want, that's what we want. And I think as long as there's more and more software where you can report your DeFi holdings, right? Because you want to do that. You want to, you want to report whether or not there's a gain or a loss on something that you're doing, for sure. But this whole, all this KYC stuff and kind of getting more and more control, we want to try to keep that to a minimum. Yosef says XRP can be the greatest asset to hold or the biggest scam in all history. Yeah, yeah. It's going to have to play out. It is going to have to play out. They have to get the stablecoin thing right. But when I look at their recent moves, this custody with Standard Charter and Medical, when I look at Zonic and I look at Archax, they are on track, I believe. They are on track. If they got to make that work. Stablecoin, I think, is going to be really, 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 really big. And hopefully they got this thing. And what they're really looking to do is make sure it's going to be launched. Since most of their business for the last few years has been internationally, they have to make sure that it's gonna meet the micro requirements for sure. So that's a good point and a good thread from Anders. Now let's get to something that I find to be fascinating. Tony put this out, right? Let me find Tony from Thinking Crypto. He just posted this out of nowhere, and I thought it was interesting. There it is there. Let me find it. This is Tony from Thinking Crypto. Tony Edwards from the Thinking Crypto channel. Then listen to his words and how he words this. He says, I got news today that in addition to Donald Trump's planned announcement for Bitcoin as U.S. Treasury Reserve an U.S. Treasury Reserve asset on Saturday, the Senate will introduce a bill this week that proposes this as well. Again, Tony gets down to the DC things, made some connections, right? Does some interviews with the Lummises and the Tom Emmers of the world, right? And the former Ripple guy, Ron Hammond, right? Hired all these people on his channel. He's got some established connections because he's been very professional in his interviews and, built some relationships over there in that DC area. So think about the comment. He says, got news today that in addition to Donald Trump's planned announcement for Bitcoin as the United States Treasury Reserve asset on Saturday, that the Senate will introduce a bill this week that proposes this as well. It's interesting. And the Seminole alumnus put this post out here. Big things are in store this week. Stay tuned. This week. Well, this week when? This week? Why is she putting that out? Why is she putting that out? No confirmation on what the Donald's going to say at this Bitcoin conference. But I did watch another video by some really smart financial people that pointed to the fact that apparently the U.S. has over 200,000 Bitcoin. Billions of dollars. And if BlackRock is doing what it's doing, and it's the fourth branch of the government, in other words, if they're figuring out more ways to make Bitcoin more valuable, and they're the fourth branch of the government, and we got 200,000 Bitcoin, and the fourth branch of the government is out here making it more valuable. I mean, think about it. This dude publicly said, if your country, this is what he said, Larry Fink, if your country is debasing your currency, Bitcoin is a great asset to hold. That's what he said in a video. I mean, not in a video, in an interview. Which countries are not debasing their currency? Which country is famously known for having debased their currency? Everybody in the US knows that the debasement of currency is a real, everybody in crypto knows that the US is debasing the currency. In places like Venezuela and Argentina, everybody knows, whether they're in crypto or not, that their currency is being debased. But think about that. So if he is saying it here, and we're the best of the crap, the United States government, monetary policy, fiscal, whatever, is the best of the crap. And you got this dude, again, the fourth branch of the United States government is saying Bitcoin. If your country is debasing your currency, Bitcoin is a great asset to hold. Everybody's listening to that. Everybody, every G20 nation is saying, he said what? About what? He said that about Bitcoin? And the G20 nations are like, well, we're debasing our currency. Certainly the G7 nations are saying it because they all get together, right? We just heard Milton say that. Or Mel, is it Mel? Right? They all get together and figure out how they're going to do it. And they do it secretly, what they're going to be doing, and they coordinate it so that England doesn't mess up the US when England does something, and the US doesn't mess up England when they do something, when the US does something. It's a fact that debasement of currency is a factual thing that's happening. Alex Wright is like, I believe it when I see it. Yeah, 100%. So listen, it's going to be very fascinating to see. I'm more interested in seeing what the Senate is going to do as opposed to what former President Donald Trump is saying he's going to do. I mean, that's a completely different thing. Because right now, I mean, he's not even in office, right? So a dude saying something is one thing. But if something gets introduced to Congress, that's further along than some dude who's hoping to get into office to do something. You see what I'm saying? So it's going to be interesting. Again, the way Tony from Thinking Crypto worded it, and like people got to get something. That is good for everyone in crypto, not just the asset Bitcoin. That's good for everyone in crypto. Every asset. It's good for Ethereum. It's good for XRP. It's good for all the cryptos if that happens. Got to get that. Yeah, I know, Yosef. Yosef said, I got a homegirl that's been talking mess to me because I told her to buy XRP in 2020. She dropped 10K and she's always bringing it up. She still ain't made no money. Told her she will. Yeah, she'll get a chance to harness or realize the profits in this run because she got in 2020 in the midst of some madness. We didn't get all exchanges, so she must have got it right before, I don't know how she got it. But in any case, 2020, we didn't get the 2020-21 bull run. We didn't get to participate in that. And she probably, I don't know what price she bought it at, right? So there's more access now. So I'm hopeful that things will be different. It's more access now. Remember, we're back listed on these exchanges, and that's a good thing. That is a very, very good thing. So it's not just the Opal. We're back on a lot of the major stuff. So I think we'll be right. So the Korean market's got some stuff. They'll be able to participate. The Japanese market, the Asian market. So I think we'll see some things for XRP this go around. I really, really, really do. Really, really, really do. So again, we'll see. Again, we got former President Trump is running for office. You know, we got him raking in, you know, close to $1 million for showing up, for taking pictures, you know, I don't know, all of this kind of stuff. And that's awesome. You know, people want it, he's saying all the right things now. He's saying all the right things now. But if he begins to get more and more educated because of JD Vance, it's important to understand. If he becomes to get more educated because of JD Vance, it can be great for crypto. He doesn't want to harm the dollar, but if he can get educated from the right-hand dude there on how it will help and not hurt, that can be a good thing. Because he is wanting to be the dude who did that thing. That's his temperament. That's his personality. That's who he is. So, and he understands this is his only shot here coming up. Siege, what you doing to spend your first $1 billion on? More monkey business. Well, one of the main things that for sure is building a foundation for inner city youth and baseball. That's probably my biggest thing that I want to do. Starting initially housing maybe the main spot in Brooklyn, New York. Legendary says $60,000 to get a pic with Trump at the convention, $100,000 for a couple to get a pic with the T-Man. Like, those are the numbers, fam. I mean, I like the dude. I'm certainly going to vote for the dude. But what the world? So that's the word on the street, fam. I wanted to share that with you guys. A legal, as a United States Treasury Reserve, and again, Treasury Reserve asset, as I think is important, not making something the world's reserve currency, as a Treasury Reserve asset. I think is huge. I really, really think it's huge, and it'll be great for the whole crypto space. And if it's an asset that they, who knows? They might make it a reserve asset. And when it gets to 500,000, they might turn it into some other thing. Who knows? They might turn it into some other thing. Don't even tell any people that they turned it into some other thing. You know what I mean? But it's interesting to say that. And let us not forget what the IMF said. And I'm not sure if people remember this because it was all around XRP. But when the IMF head, the attorney at the IMF was asked, would they make a particular currency in SDR, a particular cryptocurrency in SDR? The lawyer essentially said a country would have to adopt that crypto as legal tender. That has happened. Countries have adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. Thank you, Yosef. Oh. Yo, you're in Brooklyn too? Nice. Right? That's happened. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see. Meanwhile, Germany sold their Bitcoin. At least that's the word on the street. That they sold their Bitcoin. I can't wait to do. I'm gonna oh, here's another thing here. Let's take a listen to this real quick. About that. It's just interesting that it comes up as this reserve asset. Here's another clip from, I think this is CNBC. Is it? Yeah, take a listen.
Been a random seller in the space. And so, yeah, he's going to speak very positively about Bitcoin here at the conference.
Do you think that these favorable comments could go so far as to indicate that he'd be open to it being a reserve currency for the US?
Yeah, so there were some rumblings of that on X this week. It could be something that's very difficult to get done, but it is possible. The Justice Department holds about 200,000 units of Bitcoin. So the United States is the largest holder of Bitcoin. And so they could easily just move that over to the Department of Treasury and start right there and have 13 billion worth of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So it is a possible.
Have 13 billion worth of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. That's interesting. I mean, I guess that for a government, that's a pretty small number, I guess. So it's 13 billion at today's value. That's interesting.
Remove, it just could be tough to get done. But what happens is the Justice Department, in holding these units of Bitcoin, they've been a random seller in the space. And so if they move from being a random seller at times, which could push the price of Bitcoin down, over to being a long-term hodler, well, that could be really good for the space and push prices up. And so, yeah, he's going to speak very positively about Bitcoin here at the conference.
So that's just an interesting thing, interesting note as well. So, I mean, Saturday, 25th will be here before you know it. When is it? Thursday, Friday, 25th and 20. I think the conference is the 25th to the 27th. Chris Miles, Saudi Real plus USD equals Ripple's USD. Coincidence? Yeah, Ripple has some interesting ties to the UAE. I can tell you that. They have some interesting ties. Oh, by the way, when I was listening to Marcus Enfinger today, did you guys listen to that interview with Marcus and Tony from Thinking Crypto? It's a really good interview. Let me get that too. And share with you guys. I'll get the link for that one as well, because he said something very, very interesting about Meld Gold. I mean, maybe it's interesting, maybe it's not. I found it to be interesting. Let's see if Tony got some of this stuff stamp marked.
Build a better or
He does. He mentioned Archax and Zonic, and he mentioned Meld Gold. I don't know, but he said stable coin and talking about Meld Gold. I'm like, why is he talking about Meld Gold? Is right, tokenizing gold and silver, or gold for sure. Why did he say stable coin here? Let me see if I can find it. Timeline for tokenization. Ripple's up market availability and stable coin gaining. Will the SEC go after Ripple stablecoin adoption, tokenization? We'll try tokenization and see if that's it.
But more about tokenization.
We'll see if that's it. Let's take a listen to this here real quick, because he brought up Meld Gold. So let's see if he says it here. I didn't timestamp this one, so I'm not sure yet.
Because I would love to get your POV on that. My thoughts are, this is going to make global markets truly global versus it being siloed or just a certain jurisdictions and countries participating. It's going to open up tertiary markets, secondary and tertiary markets. You might have 24/7 trading, no more opening or closing bell on the Wall Street. Is that kind of what we're headed to?
Yeah, 100%. Look, if you, again, just quickly rewind, so what are the pain points of the existing financial system? It's fragmented, it's full of red tape. At the core, it predates the internet age. Assets take a long time to get issued and settled. And blockchains have a couple of huge advantages, right? They're global out of the gate, and they can be super, super efficient. The XRP ledger, which is the blockchain that we primarily work with, and it's one of the oldest layer one leading blockchains, as you hopefully know, has been settling in 3 to 5 seconds throughout the last 12 years for a fraction of a cent, billions of transactions. There's something magical about that, right? And so if you can obviously make sure that this technology can be applied in a way that it's compatible with the existing financial, regulatory frameworks, user safety, you can just see how powerful the efficiency gains can be for traditional financial institutions as well. And obviously, it's going to require a combination of the two things, right? To kind of like get to a place where it can actually be applicable today in the real world, as opposed to like in a parallel economy or in some, utopian future, so to say.
Are there any RippleX partners or folks that you're working on with some cool tokenization projects that you can highlight?
Listen to this.
Yeah, so it's definitely very much a focus area for us. We've made a few announcements recently. One of them was Zonix, formerly known as Tacit, which is like tokenization as a service platform. It's integrated with the XRPL, collaborating with us to bring real world assets on the XRPL. There's another project called Melgold, integrating with the XRPL to offer stablecoins backed by gold and silver. And the one that we most recently.
So was that your interpretation? I'll leave this link. Let me copy this link here. Was that your interpretation as well of Melgold? What did you guys know about Melgold? I thought they were just going to be tokenizing gold. Oh, okay. Oh, thank you, Yosef. I appreciate that. So there is Melgold, he said stablecoin. Issue a state. That's what he said, right? He said issue a stablecoin backed by gold and silver. I don't know if he misspoke there. But my understanding of Melgold, because we saw the announcements of Melgold, and then there was another gold company on the XRPL, and I kept thinking to myself, why they got two things, bringing gold onto the XRPL? And I was like, that kind of was a little off for me. But if Melgold is bringing a stable coin that's backed by gold and silver, that's different. If that's correct, but that wasn't my understanding. I just thought they were going to be tokenizing gold. But a stable coin backed by gold and silver is a different kind of thing, don't you think? Different kind of thing to me. Yosef says, I wonder how that new exchange in Texas is going to do. Yeah, I know. Will it make any difference in the markets? Wondering if it'll make any difference in the market. I don't know. It's certainly a big play by the state of Texas to go up against the New York Stock Exchange. That's a big play. But Texas got all the mining going on here. We're making gold and silver like legal tenders. You can, and I think it's not that those coins aren't going to be taxed, those transactions. Like Texas is moving forward on some stuff. Moving forward on, think about gold and silver, and you can use that as far as for payment for stuff, and it's not taxable. I guess that would be a big reason to own some gold and silver. Now that I think about it, in the state of Texas. Chris Miles says stablecoin. The Melgold token is designed to maintain a stable value relative to gold, reducing price volatility. So it is a stable coin. Chris. 5 minutes. So it is a stable coin, Chris. Interesting. Stable coin backed by gold and silver. Interesting. Reducing price volatility. All right, Chris, thank you for sharing that. I did not know that. That's good. That's interesting. That's interesting. So it's going to be interesting to see for sure. But I'm really, really happy what's going on with Texas. It's going to be interesting to see a stable coin on the XRPL backed by gold and silver. That's an interesting play for sure. All right, fam. Look, I'm going to hop off here. Thank you so much for hanging out on a on a Tuesday afternoon. Chris Miles, Yosef, I appreciate you guys checking in. Legendary, the Blue Wrencher, I appreciate you checking in, my guy. Thanks, Gary, and Baba Papa. Thanks for checking in. More Monkey Business, I appreciate you checking in, my guy. Alex Wright, thanks for checking in. Appreciate you. Who else we got? Juan Phillips. Juan checked in the building. Appreciate you being here, my bro. Do me a favor, guys. If you got Bald Silverback, thanks for checking in. If you didn't hit that like button on the way in, please do so on the way out. That'd be super, super cool. And if you've been hanging out, listening to and watching the Crypto Seeds and you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. We're trying to get that number down from 50% that are hanging out, listening, watching, and not subscribed, down to about 25%. And that will also, if you enjoy those hangouts, for sure, that would also help us reach our goal a lot sooner to getting to 10,000 subs. When we get to 10,000 subs, we're going to be doing more interviews, like what Tony does, what the Bankless does. We'll be bringing more interviews for the channel as well. So on a mad rush to get to 10K subs, and you guys could do your part in helping us get there. Hydro, Leo Messi, we appreciate you guys checking in today for sure. Leo Messi was first in the building. Pookie, the Blue Wrencher, and Alex Yeet. I appreciate you guys checking in. As always, thanks for the back and forth here in the chat. That's always super, super helpful as well. All right, fam, listen, I'm going to end this live stream like I do all my live streams and remind you guys of this. Old money doesn't want you to win. But that's okay, though, because you and I, we're already winning. And I would ask you to consider this, perhaps ponder the idea or notion of living your life permissionless. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya. Bye.